People are changing. I've been trying to put my finger on something for a while now, and it's not a fact, it's not a statistic. It's something more like a feeling that keeps showing up at the edges of conversations, in the way people talk to one another, the way they don't, in what gets said in these conversations, and very deliberately, what doesn't get said. Something has shifted. People are changing. And I don't mean politically, nor do I mean technologically, although that's very much a reality as well, but those are easy answers. And they're not wrong, of course, they're just more surface level. I'm looking at something that's underneath all of that. There's something in the texture of people, in the way a room and the energy within that room will shift when you walk into it, in the particular quality of silence between people who used to have things to say to one another, the way the words weave in and out of what now just stands as silence. People are changing, and I don't think most of us really know what to do with that. I think I, and probably you as well, we grew up being taught or thinking that humanity was a story of progress, and that the direction of human history was a kind of long, slow climb towards something better. There was an optimism about the human story, about civilization, and that was the very story itself.
If you're like me, you've probably noticed something's changed. There's something in the air. People are on edge. People have changed. It's absolutely terrifying. I don't know what it is, but it seems like when I look back from 10 or 15, 20 years ago, people had time for conversation. People were patient in traffic. Today, you're getting tailgated. People are pushy, agitated, on edge. People don't have time to talk and converse. And things have changed drastically.
And what was this story that we were told? Grow up, go to school, do these things, get these grades, get this acceptance, work, work, work. People are inherently good, and life is beautiful, and if you just do these things and check these boxes and work hard, stay focused and driven, that life, that things will just work out beautifully. Right, the arc and the moral fabric of the collective is slanted towards justice, balance, righteousness, goodness, a goodness that through the progression of the civilization would triumph in a winningness of being good in the end. Right, in each generation, that's the story of us. Each generation keeps pushing forward, always standing on the shoulders of the previous generation and reaching just a little bit higher, just getting a little bit better, going a little bit further, achieving more, more, more. And I believe that, I think most of us, or at least a lot of us, believe that, or some version of that. And I don't believe that anymore. I'm not even sure if I ever really did, but I certainly don't now. And it's not because I've grown cold or cynical in my old age, because that's not it. I'm not cynical about things, because cynicism is oftentimes just disappointment that grew up and finally threw in the towel, right? And I'm not throwing in the towel here. It's not why I'm making this. I'm making it because in the face of all cynicism, we can have the courage to look at ourselves and find optimism. But we also have to face these uncertain truths that when we ask ourselves honestly, when we actually look in the mirror and ask ourselves, look to one another, what is the story? What is the actual real story here? What is going on? Is it what they told us it would be? Is it what we somehow were programmed to believe through television and movies and storybooks as we were growing up? Because there was a narrative there. And that narrative seems to be, non-existent. Or it's different. And I don't even necessarily mean that the old narrative was evil or anything like that, or an outright lie, as much as maybe it was incomplete in some very significant ways. And so we ask ourselves these questions like, what if progress is not linear, right? Because anyone who's dared to go on a healing journey knows that, oh wow, this beast of healing is not linear at all. Not at all, folks. What if progress is the same way in the overall movement of civilization, the way that it is for us individually in our healing journeys, where, wow, it's a spiral. It's ever changing. And in that ever changing, it can at times be very confusing. Because what if it is a spiral and we're in one of those places on the spiral where you don't know if you're ascending or descending, if left is right or right is left, or if everything around you is just seems like it's falling apart, because it actually is. And what would that really mean for us if that were true? Because here's something I keep noticing. People are changing. People are angrier. And I don't just mean politically, although yes, of course, that too. I mean something more personal than that. It's a low-grade ambient anger that just sits beneath the surface of ordinary interactions, right? The kind that flares up in parking lots and at family dinners and, yes, in comment sections. The kind that feels ancient, like it was here long before whatever minuscule event triggered it today. It's something that is maybe even perhaps everlasting. And maybe it is actually progressive as well. What would that look like? What would that mean? And one thing that I keep coming back to, that I know when I went back to school for the career that I'm now in for these topics, something that I learned was that anger is almost always, not always, but very often enough, the emotion that's on top, because it's easily accessible for humans. We'll just say that for now. That's not a complete explanation by any means, but anger can even be kind of fun sometimes, right? And maybe not fun, but it feels good. It's a relief from pressure, something that we don't want to admit, right? If someone has upset you, have ticked you in the wrong way, maybe in the end you come back around to that moral fabric and you feel sorry or feel bad for maybe things that you said or did out of anger. But in that moment, that sweet, delicious anger, revenge, whatever it is, tasted sweet on the lips before it turned bitter in our hearts. And I think people are feeling that. And what I learned back in school is that anger is never an emotion that travels alone. Anger is always the sensation that is floating on top of the pool of sadness, of a deep melancholy that maybe now we're perhaps seeing is, runs like a river through all of us. That there is this collective river of melancholy that only takes certain events happening at certain times in life to turn into a raging flood. And this is the point that I guess I really want to make, is that underneath the anger, there is this feeling that we have lost touch with as a civilization. We haven't lost touch with it in that we still experience it every day, but we stopped utilizing words and explanations and having conversations centered around a very specific type of our personal suffering. And I think losing that as a civilization has pointed us in this direction where we have become turned around on that spiral and we are now lost. Because I think that we are a civilization that is in grief. I think we are a civilization that is in deep grief. And that's scary to us because we don't have a vocabulary for it. We don't have a background in grieving in the way that past generations did. We don't have a language for grief the way that people that came before us did, and that causes the grief to come out sideways, explosive as rage, or this mystery that becomes a numbness. We use any number of addictions, modern addictions, whether it's alcohol, drugs, nicotine, caffeine, sex, gambling, right? There's almost an endless number of addictions today that we use to quell the stinging pain of this fire in this deep well of sadness that we cannot seem to extinguish. And we used to call it grief. People are changing. And another one of the ways that they're changing that I keep seeing over and over is that people are tired. And I don't mean like the way that we use this word repeatedly day in and day out, like, oh, I'm tired, I need a nap, I'm tired, I spent too much time watching Netflix or scrolling on social media last night, I need to go to bed. They're that too, but I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about a tired that you can feel down in your bones, a tired that there's not even a real word that actually can surmise what is meant by this level.
I'm burnt out, and so is everyone that I know. I don't think I've properly rested in the last couple of years. And the thing that's really starting to hit me is I'm starting to hear it in everyone that I know. At work, there's always been this like running joke, and it's been like this ever since I started in construction. Somebody will do something and, you'll joke that they'll get in trouble, and then you say, I hope they fire me. I could only be so lucky. But it was always a joke. But nowadays when people say it, it really doesn't seem like a joke. Like, people want to be fired these days, I swear, just so that they can have some form of reprieve and they can relax in a way. Sometimes I feel like a shell of a human. I'm just not there. I have no interest in being where I'm at. All I want to do is go home. Sometimes I'm so exhausted that when I go to relax, I don't even recharge. You just have such a deep level of exhaustion.
Actually, it's the kind of tired that John Coffey in The Green Mile was talking about. Remember when he said, oh, I'm tired, boss. I'm dog tired, boss. I don't even know what that means, but I think it means what we want it to mean, in the sense that I am tired all the way down to my very core. I'm tired that no good night's rest or vacation or a really good nap, or I'm tired in a way that seems to be somehow beyond definition. I'm just exhausted. And actually, there is an entire field of information about this type of tired. It's existential exhaustion. And I'm seeing it now more than I ever have. And maybe that's because I inhabit that a little bit more and I'm able to see it. It's always been around, but I'm just now at an age and place where I'm existentially exhausted enough that I can recognize it. Maybe that's it, but there's something inside me that also says that no, it's something else. It's something else. And that's why this is an interactive format. It's an interactive series here, is because I want you guys to write in and say, do you see these things? Do you feel these things too? Is this going on? Are you hearing and are you experiencing these things that seem to be happening in the way that the world is changing? I mean that I want to hear from you guys on this. This is a collective effort here because people are indeed changing. People are changing in that there is what professionals are now referring to as an epidemic of loneliness. Loneliness, being lonely, has now reached epidemic status. How can that be? How can loneliness be at an epidemic status when we have technology, we have phones, we have social media, we now have the government building quote unquote data centers to install flock cameras and keep literal tabs on everywhere at all times. Yet we have never been more lonely than we are now. How is that possible? How is the lack of connection between us as people, even though we are seemingly stacked on top of one another, how is it that we have reached a point of loneliness in human history that we don't even actually know what to call it or what to do about it, except tell people, yeah, it's bad. People are lonely. They're isolated. Depression statistics escalating. Suicide statistics escalating. Anxiety statistics escalating. Homelessness statistics escalating. And all of this was already on the rise pre-pandemic, certainly went haywire during the pandemic, and now post-pandemic, they have spiraled out of control, and most cities, most states have no idea what to do about it or how to handle it. Instead, we're going to take the money that could be going to all of these different things, and we're going to, I don't know, maybe invade, bomb another country, steal another country's president. Let's just go run amok and cause more chaos instead of trying to fix the chaos we already caused in our own house. People are changing, and we're changing in ways where the exhaustion has reached such a peak that we don't even honestly have the resources. We don't even have the resources to thoroughly investigate it. Because guess what? All of that money is going into other sources that is only dividing us even further. Or at least trying to. And doing a seemingly great job about it. At least in America. People are changing. And I think people are searching, longing for a hope that cannot be seen, only remembered. And lost, they are searching for the memory of a spark, of a hope in an external material world that once convinced us it could deliver, that it could carry, that it could hold. And so now we strive, lost and lonely, amongst the ruins of old stories crumbling down and realizing they were only ever false promises made by the ghosts of a past that still haunts us. Because no one ever taught us how to give up the ghost. No one ever taught us how to let go of a world that was only ever haunting us. And so it waits, that memory. It waits, and it refuses to die. It refuses to fade like the sun in the western sky. And so it waits. For us. To remember. To wake up. And I think that's what's happening with us collectively right now, is that we live our lives in stories, right? And once upon a time, we were sold a story. We were sold a bunch of stories that if we put our faith in something outside of ourselves and in something material and in something that is of this world, then everything will just work out. Grow up. Go to school. Pay attention. Fall in line. Put your faith in these textbooks. Put your faith in these institutions of higher learning. Put your faith and your money in this degree. Yeah, it'll be okay when you get out of school. You'll be set. You'll get this kind of job, make this kind of money, and on it goes, the white picket fence and la-di-da. Put your faith in the system. Put your faith in the government. They're going to take care of you. They love you. Of course they work for the people. Put your faith in law. Put your faith in the justice system. Put your faith in all of these things created by fallible human beings that will continue to crumble and fall under the weight of its own corruption. Put your faith in these stories that we spun for you while we watch the world burn around you. And so these stories are dying. The stories themselves they're fading out and they're dying. They're crumbling off one by one, and it leaves us in a place of deep, deep fear and grief. Grief in the old stories that were supposed to serve us that are now no longer with us, and we don't know how to hold that, and it terrifies us. Those stories have now faded with that western sun, and they're gone. And all that's left in its place is the huge, terrifying, absolutely necessary but extraordinarily painful darkness and silence. But it's in that silence that we seek. Because in that silence is the one thing that refuses to ever give up and die. I believe that in that darkness and in that silence, something is calling out. Something is trying to wake us up. Something is trying to get our attention. Something is trying to remember itself. In the end, I do believe that some of our most pertinent questions, some of our most soul-defining queries, do actually have an answer. And I think that answer is inside of us. And I think that answer has always been inside of us, individually and collectively. Perhaps we've just been reading the wrong story. Because I think that something is still in the silence, waiting to be remembered. Because people are changing. And I think that's a good place to start.